Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, March 20th, 2018. Madam Clerk.
Item 1 on closed session agenda. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. 1. Cheryl Straub and Anna Lewis v. Calaveras County et al., Calaveras Superior Court, case number 18CV43036. And 2. Calaveras Cannabis Legal Defense Fund et al. Versus County of Calaveras et al., Calaveras Superior Court case number 18CV43043.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Hello everyone, Trevor Whitkey, Calaveras Cannabis Alliance. I have a question regarding how the closed session is going to be conducted, considering Clyde Clapp and I believe, if not already, soon in the future, Dennis Mills will be named respondents in the lawsuit. Will they be part of the discussions? Will the discussions be bifurcated to make sure that elements of the suits that pertain specifically to these two supervisors and their conflicts of interest are separated out from the discussion? Will they be included in the meeting? I'd just like to have some clarification about how that will proceed.
County Counsel.
At this point, we have not received any amended complaint from, at least from the Calaveras Cannabis.
This would be on the Straub.
Yeah. Again, I mean, an answer's been filed, and we, as you know, and we don't agree with those allegations. And so
the conflict of interest allegations?
So I think at this point, we're not going to answer any questions.
Okay.
An answer's been filed, and
okay.
Any other public comments on this item? Seeing none, we go to closed session. Point of order.
Hello?
Point of order. What order?
The mic. Okay, the mic just came on. So the point of order is that I believe that Clyde Clapp and Supervisor Mills are party to the lawsuit and have a conflict of interest. And so I'm just on the record stating a point of order.
That's not a point of order.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Rule. I can pull up rules and
It
procedure.
was answered by County Counsel. Okay. So you've made your statement. Thank you.
My statement was made during public comment, which is my opportunity to make a public comment. I'm now raising a point of order. My point of order, according to the board's Rules and Procedures Handbook, states that supervisors with a conflict of interest are not able to engage in proceedings where they have conflicts. There are two alleged conflicts of interest for Supervisor Clapp and for Supervisor Mills pertaining to the matter at hand. So I'm raising a point of order to say that, for the record, I believe that they have a conflict of interest. They should recuse themselves from the discussion. They should not participate in this closed session meeting. And I'm asking you, as the chairman, to make a ruling on that and not to defer to anybody else, but for you to make a ruling.
Okay, well, thank you for demanding what I do, but I'm going to refer to County Counsel, okay, and that I have the right to do that, and County Counsel has given her opinion, and I will go with County Counsel's opinion, so thank you.
Okay, point of order again. Point of order.
We will go to closed session.
This is a separate point of order.
We're going to closed session.
Supervisor Tofinelli, Chair. This is a separate point of order.
We haven't even started, sir. Can you please wait for your point of order until we've started the pledge and finish now? Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Calaveras Board of Supervisors meeting for March 20th, 2018. Supervisor Garamendi will not be here today. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? CAO Let's, can you please lead us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk.
Report of closed session held on March 13th, 2018. The board reconvened from closed session at 1:55 p.m. on March 13th, 2018 and reported the following. Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Government Code Section 54957B1, Title, Public Works Director. There was no reportable action taken. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2, no reportable action was taken. The board adjourned the March 13, 2018 meeting at 2:00 p.m. Report of this morning's closed session. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, 1, Cheryl Straub and Anna Lewis v. Calaveras County et al., Calaveras Superior Court case number 18CV43036, and 2, Calaveras Cannabis Legal Defense Fund et al. Versus County of Calaveras et al., Calaveras Superior Court case number 18CV43043. There was no reportable action taken.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Sir.
Trevor Whitkey, CCA. I wanted to point out Rule 8. Powers of the Chair, Vice Chair, and Chair Pro Tempore. The Chair shall serve as presiding officer of the Board, rule on questions of procedure. It says shall. So the responsibilities of the Chair, per the Board procedures, are to rule on questions of procedure. It's not me who's demanding it. It's the Board's own Rules and Procedures Handbook that requires that you as Chair rule on all questions of procedure.
Thank you for your point. Moving on to announcements. Is there any member of the board any announcements?
Mr. Chair, I have an announcement. I'd like to publicly acknowledge and recognize our snow removal crews up in the Arnold-Dorrington area. The last 4 days we were faced with extreme snowfall, some as much as 2 feet in 12 hours. And although challenged, we were able to keep arteries open to the point where we had no reported injuries. We did have trees in the houses. I know one situation where there was a person trapped, and fortunately we were able to rescue that person without any injury. So kudos to the road maintenance crew out there, and I know they have a difficult job, and I know we can't keep everybody happy, but I happened to go out this morning at their 7 o'clock meeting and personally thanked them. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Mills.
I would like to add to that with this new atmospheric river that's coming in this week, that people need to be prepared, and I think that's one thing that the road crews probably have found is people are ill prepared to deal with the situation at hand. And please, if you're not certain of where you are, or you're in a safe place, then don't go there. Don't go up the hill and get involved in the snow and the activity up there if you're not prepared to handle it. And that means be sure that you've got a go bag or something in the trunk of your car. Take the time to know where you are before you get into it. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, one more announcement.
Yes, Supervisor Oliver.
As the public may be aware of, we are engaged, I take that back, Alpine County and other resources, including Calaveras County, was engaged in the search for a missing skier, Thomas Malarkey. I was informed that Calaveras resources have been dismissed from that search, although the search is continuing with Alpine County and CHP resources, subject to recall. I just want to make sure that, being from the Arnold residence, our hearts and minds go out to the family of Mr. Malarkey and hope for a successful rescue. Thank you, sir.
Any other announcements? Yes, CAO, let's.
I wanted to add as well on our winter storm response. Our new OES director has really taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and making sure that we're getting all the resources connecting. Fortunately, we didn't need them this last weekend, although the storm certainly was unexpectedly strong from going into it. And I think, to Supervisor Mills' point, this unpredictable atmospheric river. So we're watching closely for this week, knowing that we're starting to see some more pooling water on the roads. We're expecting a lot of rain, so we'll be evaluating it as the storm progresses through today, deciding whether we activate to a low level of the EOC or whether we continue to make sure resources are coordinated. Either way, we're working with all the different stakeholders. Also, I didn't see Kathy here, so she popped in the morning, but she might have gotten called into a meeting. So I'll go ahead and just make the announcement that she was going to make in the interest of time. We wanted to let the board know and the public that we are going to respond to a project that came through the Governor's Office of Economic Development for it's a leading wood processing company that is looking at trees. They specifically focus on fire burn impacted areas, tree mortality, and wood processing. I think this is going to be a competitive process, but my understanding is this company had specifically mentioned Calaveras County as one of the places it was looking at. So the responses are due by March 29th, and that is really the county developing a general proposal of, what sites we might have in mind, what infrastructure might be in place. Some of the key things that the company wants is easier access to a shipping port such as Stockton, easier access to main feeder routes, but also close to the source, the tree material. So I think it puts us at a pretty good competitive advantage. There she is. Sorry, I didn't see you. I was stealing your thunder.
Stealing your thunder.
I apologize. Running. So yes, we were contacted by the Governor's Office of Economic Development and Business Assistance regarding a solicitation for a wood manufacturer, primarily looking at tree mitigation issues, doing a development between 100 and 400 acres, and investing anywhere between $100 million and $124 million in our community. Also creating 80 jobs to our area. So we are going to throw our hat in the ring. We are competing against not just California areas, but also Mississippi, Georgia, and Connecticut. But I think we have a really good shot at it. I think that we have some unique resources and attributes that could make this very successful. And thank you, Peter, for forwarding me the email. We got it last Thursday, and we need to respond by March 29th. So, are there any questions?
More questions?
If you pull this off, it's a great start.
Any public questions at all? Can you come to the microphone, please, Bonnie? That way people can hear.
Thank you. Is there anything the public can do to help facilitate this process? Contact our legislators or rag on you people? Or is there anything that we could do to help that process along?
Unfortunately not. This, because it's a private company, this is the normal process. The nice thing, again, with having an economic development director and an economic development office is that these are the types of things that typically do come up, and it's just being aware of them, responding promptly to them, and having our ducks in a row to be able to show what value this community can provide to a prospective business. So thank you for the question, though. If we do get to that point, we will most definitely bring that back for discussion and let the community know.
Good morning, George Fry. I'm reminded of a phone call that Steve Walensky got from the Commerce Department in Sacramento, who's connected with the National Commerce Department, where then chair of the board, Cliff Edson, called the Commerce Department and told them that he was the chair of the Board of Supervisors and that he didn't want the project, the $10 million project grant, to go to Steve Walensky and the 40 full-time members, employees that would have come with that project. That to me is the absolute disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life. You talk about economic development, and then you got the chair of the Board of Supervisors of Calaveras County.
Is there a question in this, George, at all?
Yeah, you bet there is.
Okay.
Why didn't anybody else follow up on it? That's my question. I'm just sick and tired of the lack of support. For the first time in our lives, we have a person as an economic development person, and it's about time. I know you don't like my comments about Cliff Edson, but that's just the way it is.
This is a question on an item brought by the Economic Development Director.
I understand that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're not one of my favorite friends anymore.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much. Go get them. All right, moving on. Madam Clerk.
Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Okay, public comment.
Hello, my name is Susanna Crow. On February 26th at the last IHSS meeting, I got up to use the restroom and George Fry launched a very nasty personal tirade against me that continued after I left the room. This triggered off some reactions in me. I have been on the IHSS board since 2008. My first meeting that I attended, Bonnie Newman launched an attack on me about selling my vote, which I had no idea what that meant because I didn't know that there was a stipend of $40. And if that wasn't ridiculous, it was insulting. My attendance was good. I was on the membership committee for a number of years. Bonnie and George were always rejected by a majority of the members because of their lack of following procedure, their personal tirades, and the haranguing of other members. I took a break about 3 years ago for 2 years when my mother was ill and dying, And when I came back, I was really astonished to find out that the board had forced us to take Marty, Bonnie, and George. Since then, the tirades that have been unleashed against members of the community, members of the committee, have driven off Colleen Reeve, Teresa Sable, and numerous other people. And people who come to the meetings once and see what's going on don't want to participate. I was informed by Diane this year that my term was up. I reapplied. My attendance was bad this year. My ex-husband moved in with me and within a few weeks had several strokes, the last one being a major that sometimes interfered because I would get emergency calls to go to the hospital. I would generally have excused absences, but there were a few times where, the other thing that happened is I was phoned by Steve Agino, who let me know that the meeting was canceled. The meeting was rescheduled. Another time I was told by George Fry, and I can't remember if it was Marty Crane or Bonnie Newman, phoned me from my friend's hospital bed and said the meeting's canceled. I went to the meeting anyway, and it turned out that that was the day that they were getting ready to try and drum me out. I have gotten minutes. I have gotten no minutes or agendas because
you,
the
ma'am.
envelopes are empty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Good morning, Bonnie Newman, Double Springs. Today is vernal equinox. That means 12 days of sunlight. 12 hours of sunlight and 12 hours of darkness. It's also the first day of spring. I'd like to think that the new season will bring us out of the winter of despair that we've been living under, the year of despair we've been living under, and bring us hope for the future. And as I looked at the agenda this morning, I saw it was very, very short. Last November, we submitted our paperwork to do our year-end report for the IHSS Advisory Committee. Well, it's 5 months later. We're still not on the agenda. I would like to see us get that under our belt so we can proceed with the other business that we have at hand. And rather than address some of the issues that Susanna Crow has brought up, I would like to address them in a study session where we can talk about the problems the committee's had, the obstacles the committee's faced, and the setbacks that have been blocking our progress. The IHSS committee was almost abandoned 3 years ago. We could not have a quorum. The county council recommended that the committee be eliminated. Through the hard work of dedicated volunteers in our community, we have reconstituted our committee. There's not 2 people on this committee like there was. We have 9. We still need 2 more positions filled. And I would urge all of you to please get with your constituents and find out who might participate on this committee, the Commission on Aging, and the Area 12 agency. Lastly, I'd just like to thank you folks for the commitment you have in allowing the public to come and speak, but I would like to remind you that you're under no obligation to limit us to 3 minutes. We used to be able to speak for 5 minutes, and today would have been a perfect time. I would have loved to tell you a tale of Double Springs, but it takes me longer than 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other public comments?
My comment has to do with Susanna Crow. Until the Board of Supervisors decided that they were going to screen applications for IHSS, many times Bonnie and I applied for IHSS and got turned down, never got to the clerk of the board. Never. We were just thrown in the wastebasket. And I think that the committee as a whole has done a lot of good things. I feel sorry for Susanna because she's tied up with Colleen. And Gary, I told you about Colleen when you first came back on the board. Dennis, I told you about Colleen when you first got elected to the board and probably prior to that. Something needs to be done about Colleen. And I'm going to bring forth the ammunition for you folks to do something about it. She's been in that job 13 years, makes over $100,000, doesn't really report to anybody. And, you know, I'm at a point in my life that I'm not going to put up with a bunch of BS from anybody. And I like that we have two very, very responsible supervisors. When I called them, they call me right back. The only time that Gary has ever called me back after I've called him is when it had to do with the senior person of the year volunteer. I have made many phone calls to him and he does not return them. I don't know whether he has a phobia about phones or what it is, but for sure he doesn't return my phone calls. And the last thing I want to say is that when the gentleman that's on the planning commission got selected by Gary, Gary told me about all this planning background he had. I looked him up. The only planning background he has is estate planning. Now what in the heck does that have to do with land use planning? I have 10 years of land use planning in this county and a master's degree from Cal Berkeley in urban and rural land use planning. Now, how does that compare with estate planning? I don't think there's any comparison at all. I'm just really fed up with some of the stuff that's going on here on this board. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Good morning. I'm Bruce Judici, Valley Springs. I'm concerned about the fiscal well-being of the county. I noticed that after the ban, there was no real, seems to be no real concern about how we're going to be funding this county going forward. I know that what was reported in the enterprise was that, you know, that we're very happy to get through this fiscal year with a cash surplus, which is very nice. But a lot of those funds did come from cannabis taxes, and what is going forward is nothing. With a ban, we don't have those cannabis taxes coming in, and so far there's been nothing put forward to replace that. And I'm noticing that today the agenda is real thin. I would be real concerned that this long-term planning for the county's fiscal stability gets put off just like it's any other budget year, because it's not going to be any other budget year. I don't know what's going to happen with respect to cannabis legal action, whether or not there's going to have to be some of those monies that have been set aside to be repaid. But we can't run deficits in this county, not forever. And so I would really urge the board, if they can, start looking at next fiscal year and future fiscal years sooner rather than later, and not treat this as a normal year. That would be really appreciated. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments? George, you've already spoken.
I said
You've already
I was
spoken.
Speaking to the issue.
You just spoke.
Oh, give me a break.
You just spoke,
You're
George.
a real piece of work.
George, you spoke.
I understand that, and I prefaced
Thank
it
you.
with telling you,
George, if you
George,
continue,
you
I'd ask
calm
to have
down.
you removed.
Any other public comments?
Calm down.
I didn't hear what you said.
If you continue to disrupt the meeting, I would suggest that you take it outside.
I'm not disrupting the meeting.
Thank you. Moving on. Madam Clerk.
Item 3 is from the Planning Department to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution upholding the Planning Commission's denial of the appeal of the Planning Director's denial of commercial medical cannabis registration 2016-880 for Casey Salmon on APN 064-024-022.
Good morning, Peter Maurer, Planning Department. This is an appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of the appeal of the Planning Director's denial of the cannabis registration for Casey Salmon, as stated by the clerk. It's located at 7605 Philly Lane in Angels Camp. The application was denied for violation of 1795-165 N10, which requires fencing around the cannabis cultivation site. On January 31st, an inspection was made by code compliance and found that there was no fencing or inadequate fencing around the site. They were issued a correction list and given 10 days to begin the repair and installation of an appropriate fence. On November 2nd, code compliance went out and did a second inspection and found that still the fencing had not been completed. A recommendation for denial was sent from code to planning, and the application was denied on November 15th, 2017, because of the lack of fencing. At the Planning Commission hearing for the appeal, the appellant stated he felt that the direction by code was vague, that he was told he needed to begin fencing and was not given a timeline of what it needed to be done. During the hearing, the Planning Commission asked the appellant, had the site ever been fully fenced during the cultivation season of 2017? He replied, no, it had not. And based on that, the commission denied the appeal for a lack of adequate fencing, despite the fact that there was perhaps some lack of clear time frame when it needed to be done. The code very clearly states that the cultivation area needed to be fenced. It actually needed to be fenced during the 2016 cultivation season. So 2 full seasons, the cultivation area was out there unfenced, and for that reason, the Planning Commission denied the appeal, upholding the original denial. There was one correction I'd like to make in the resolution.
Okay. I need to hold you right there, though,
Okay.
because first off, I need to open the hearing itself.
Oh.
And then I need to read the procedure for the hearing. I will open this hearing, and it will be staff presentation and board questions of staff. Then we will go to the presentation by the appellant, excuse me. Presentation by members of the public shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. Then we'll go to summation and rebuttal, 15 minutes. And then we will go to staff's summation and rebuttal. And then members of the public on the rebuttals. Board questions. I'll close the appeal hearing, and we'll have board discussion and deliberation. Okay, Peter.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
maybe a question for council. The statements and evidence presented prior to opening up the hearing can be considered by the board?
Well, I think that you might want to refer back to the statements that were made before you formally open the hearing, and you can ask if any but board members failed to hear them, and then refer them, incorporate them by reference into the hearing.
That's okay, that's fine. He got further along. I was going to have a little summation and then go into to it, but that's why I stopped him. Is there any questions? Does the board need to repeat anything?
No, I think we have it so far.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'll just summarize my statement then by saying that the Planning Commission denied this because there was no fencing at all during 2 cultivation seasons, and that that was in violation of the urgency ordinance allowing the cultivation to occur. One correction on the resolution itself, the word baling, which is in the evidence statement of the resolution, is misspelled. It should be B-A-L-I-N-G, not B-A-I-L-N-G. Wrong kind of bailing. So with that correction, we would recommend that you adopt the resolution as recommended by the Planning Commission.
And I just point out that Officer Watts is here. He's the one who conducted the inspections, and if the board has any questions about what he saw on the site, he's available to come to the microphone and answer any questions you may have.
Any board questions? Supervisor Mills.
Yeah, I do have questions regarding the summary that is in our board packet regarding the statement of numerous violations. And it said 3 of which had been observed at the first inspection. And based upon the applicant's failure to correct those 3 original violations, what were those 3 for the record, please?
One was, go back to the list there. Oh, I'm sorry. So they were over canopy, no fence, and the posting did not have reflective material to allow the sheriff's officer to identify the posting in the dark. The over canopy was corrected. The Planning Commission felt that the posting was not sufficient reason for a denial, and so the only reason for denial was the lack of fencing. When the second inspection was made, not only was there no fence, there were no locks on the gate, still there's no permit posting. There was an unhoused generator, hazardous electrical, hoop house permits were required. There were electrical permits was necessary. They were still over canopy, and the cultivation area had been expanded.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is the appellant here? The appellant is not here.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Mauer, was proper notice given to the appellant of this hearing?
Yes, there was.
And how was that accomplished?
We sent them a mailed notice.
Okay. Was there any phone conversations with the appellant from the notice, the date of the notice until today's date?
Not that I'm aware of.
So was there any inquiries made as to whether or not the appellant would be present?
No.
I'm very concerned about the fact that we're hearing, and not pointing fingers, only one side of the story here. And I want to make sure that every possible opportunity for notification was given to the appellant.
The appellant was notified through our normal process,
Okay.
and apparently chose not to show up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Supervisor Mills.
So that leads to the next question is in noticing other appellants through the normal process, have you had this happen before where they didn't show up?
There have been occasions where an appellant has just not shown up,
And we've heard those cases.
and we have heard those cases. Well, the Planning Commission's heard those cases. I'm not aware of the appellant not showing up for a board meeting.
I can think of a few.
Okay.
Okay, just wanted that for the record.
Moving forward then, without the appellant here, is there any public comments on this issue?
I just have a question. Is the normal process a letter through USPS, or is it a certified letter notifying people? Because I'm telling you, sometimes I don't get mail, okay? And sometimes I get mail 2 weeks late. So that would just be my question.
Any other public comments? Seeing none. Peter, do you want to ask a question?
We do not do it certified mail. We provide it through the normal U.S. Postal Service. The appellant had received prior notification from us on the other appeal hearings, on the denial, and I think we have to assume that they provided us with the address for which to notify them, and that is normal and legal noticing process.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Olivera.
Mr. Mauer, did the appellant post the appeal fees?
Yes.
And the appellant was notified at the time of that posting of the date for the Board of Supervisors hearing, or is it done by letter later on?
We typically would identify when it's likely to be heard because we have a 45-day window in which to hear it. If we are slammed and need additional time, we've requested in other circumstances that they grant an extension of that time or a waiver of the timeline, and typically they would do that. In this case, if you notice, there's only one that we were working on at the time, so we did not need that additional time to keep up with all the work. So we're usually in communication with the appellants. Often we will get correspondence from their attorney or from the appellant themselves as to a brief or an argument in writing prior to the hearing. In this case, the appellant has chosen not to communicate with us, and it may be nothing more than they were just extending the time, trying to extend it as long as possible using the appeal process to extend their cultivation.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Any other board questions? If not, at this point, I guess we can close the hearing. Appellant is not here, so I will close the hearing, bring it back to the board.
I refer to packet page 38 and the photograph therein of the possible grading. And then I go back up to what permits were issued, and the last permit that I show is 2008 for grading. The photograph, if it's current, indicates that grading activity was recent. That isn't something that was created over a long period of time, because you'd see sloughing. You'd see rock outcroppings more prevalent because the dirt would fall away from the rock outcroppings. So this is fairly new. And did they get any permits to do any grading work beyond 2008 that you know of?
Not that I know of. So what happened here was, even though there were additional violations that were identified at the second code enforcement, we had already identified and provided a time frame for the appellant to correct the January 2017 inspection. Our procedure has been that an applicant has the ability to correct those violations, and so rather than wait for additional time to go by, it was just, let's just deny this. He's in violation. He's clearly in violation. We don't need to provide any additional time. So we based our denial on the previous inspection and the lack of compliance with that previous inspection, rather than going through that procedure and waiting another 2 or 3 months for all that to work through.
I just wanted it noted for the record again.
Yeah.
Any other board questions? Any motions? A motion?
I would move to uphold the Planning Commission's recommendation to deny.
I would second that.
Motion by Supervisor Mills, second by Supervisor Clapp. Any other discussion? Not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0 with 1 absent. We will take a 5-minute break. Allow.
Oh, wait.
All right, moving on. Madam Clerk.
Supervisor announcements. In compliance with AB 1234, chaptered as Government Code Section 53232.3D, board members shall provide brief reports on meetings they attended at the expense of the local agency at the next regular meeting of the legislative body. This report is required to include meetings attended for which there has been expense reimbursement, mileage, meals, lodging, etc., but may also, at the board member's discretion, include any other meeting attended by the supervisor on behalf of the county.
All right, we'll start with Supervisor Oliveira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On March 14th, I attended the, by invitation, the Republican Committee for Calaveras Candidates Night. I also attended, the very next day, the Chambers function in Valley Springs at Upwell Bank for Candace's house service, I believe. Supervisor Tofanelli was there hosting. I attended also the San Andreas Rotary Dinner on March 16th here in San Andreas. I wish I could have been in two places at one time, but I understand Valley Springs had one too. During the weekend, I was conducting our county business under emergency situations, and I want to shout out also to our Emergency Services Director, our Public Works Department once again. This is one of the very first times I've seen total preparedness as far as anticipation of incidents that fortunately did not happen. I hope that the county will set a precedence in this. One of the problems we've had, I believe, in my district is the communication of current conditions and resources and how we're addressing issues. I see this as a first step, and it's a very good step. So I plan to be part of that process as a supervisor, and I would encourage other supervisors to take a look at their programs, because I've got nothing but total cooperation from our OES, our public works people, our road maintenance crews, and especially our administration. So thank you, Chair.
All right. Supervisor Mills.
Let's see, on Wednesday the 14th, we were in Stockton for the Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Basin Authority. We are now moving to a planning stage for the entire basin, which must be in place by January of 2020. There was a grand opening of Yummy Haha Ice Cream in Angels Camp. This is their second location. They have one in Copperopolis currently, so this is another new business opening in the Angels Camp area. On Thursday, we were in the morning with CCWD as well as CAL FIRE, Utica Water and Power, and the county in working out a hazard mitigation plan, which I'm sure that other agencies will try to incorporate, but it also plays to our general plan and the county's hazard mitigation plan as well. We had in the afternoon a pre-meeting of the Eastside GSA to kind of formulate exactly where we were in the overall groundwater sustainability plan for the San Joaquin Basin. And the one thing that came out of that meeting is that we do have the data. We're one of the few counties that have the data that will assist. We don't need to drill a lot of new wells or start a whole new program here. This has been something we've had in place since 2006, so it's a big help to do that. And then we had a meeting with Woodward and Curran, who were the planning staff, to discuss the GSP preparedness process after that meeting. And then in the evening, I was at the Foothill Fire Safe Council on Friday. We were with the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association in Placerville. They are putting on a series of meetings, including one that will be coming up here in San Andreas towards the end of this month. Anyone who's interested in wanting to attend those meetings, please get on the Mountain Counties website and just do a brown bag ticket to let them know you're coming. It doesn't cost you anything. There's some very big moves that are happening as a result of the recent Byron Bethany decision, where in 2015 they were told by the State Water Board to stop diverting water, but they have pre-1914 water rights, and they went to court against the state and actually won. And what that does is it kind of sets a precedent for all purveyors who hold pre-14 rights, that the state is going to be limited on exactly what they can tell them to do and how they're going to control those water rights in the future. It is a complex issue, and mountain counties with these series of meetings will be helping people to better understand how, for instance, the Twin Tunnel decision, which would be an intake near the McCullum River, or other diversions will affect the overall water quality in the Delta and affect the pumping operations into Southern California. So there's a lot of complex things that are going on with this, and I think that anyone who's interested in water rights, diversions, fish flows, etc., it's time to get involved in that. Saturday we had Irish Days up in Murphy's. I was on the Calaveras Animal Disaster Assistance Float, and it wasn't as big a turnout as it's been in the past, but it didn't rain on anybody, so it was a good time, nice and cool day. And that's about all I have for now. Thank you.
Supervisor Clapp.
Well, I was up in Angels the other day, and I was at the same meeting that Mike was at, and got 15 minutes to speak. And I was at the Rotary Club with Gary in Valley Springs. And
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day, ate a lot of corned beef and everything. So that's it. I didn't cost the county any money this week, so that was a good deal.
Okay. Nobody attended Murphy's Irish Days? Did you? Did you say that? Yeah. Okay. You were on the float. You were on a float. Really?
Calaveras Animal Disaster Assistance is a group that's formed post-Butte fire to help in extricating large animals from fire zones. And they have the equipment, they have the manpower, they have the communications technology, they even have the FEMA training. So they're properly positioned to help and assist people that need to move animals quickly, no matter where it is in the county. And so I do everything I can to support them.
Did you have a shamrock on or a
I had a green bow tie and a green bowler and a green shirt.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. All right. I attended a LAFCO meeting last night. I also attended a joint meeting that we've started last year, I think Supervisor Oliveira, when he was chair, with CCWD, Joint County and CCWD meeting. Very interesting meeting. It was the first of the year. One of the one of the things we discussed was AB 142, which is the wild and scenic for McCollum. And they wanted me to poll this board as to whether this board would be interested in forming an ad hoc committee with them to lobby and continue to lobby to make sure what some of the items they want to be included in that bill remain in that bill and are not thrown out when it goes into legislation. So I would like to poll the board to find out if they would be interested in bringing that back on the agenda on the 10th of April for us to formally adopt it. So I will start with Supervisor Clapp. Yes or no?
I would like to do as much as we can to protect what we have. It seems like everybody takes it and we don't get it, so I would be in favor of doing something along those lines.
Supervisor Mills?
Absolutely. As I said, the provisions that they and Amador Water Agency have and Calaveras Public have put into this, I think, need to be a way of verifying that this is our water. We are a source county, and I think we need to be fully engaged in guaranteeing that those are ours going forward. Absolutely.
Supervisor Oliveira?
I've had extensive conversations with Assemblyman Bigelow, various constituents on this matter. As far as an ad hoc committee, I would participate in it, but I must be upfront and say I'm very guarded of the fact that this issue was addressed by a prior board. And at that time, a decision was made to endorse wild and scenic, then a decision was made by the board to not and oppose that, and now it's coming to a point again, and I want to make sure that everybody has their eyes open and their ears open when it comes to this issue. As far as an agreement or some type of negotiation, I think I would be looking very hard at guarantees that those conditions are met, if it's even considered. Without that, I would be opposed to it.
And I told him I was in favor of it, so, Mr. Lutz, if you could bring that back to us on the 10th for a vote. There's a lot of provisions that they see in it that they would like to see in it, and I think Mr. Bigelow has provided what they were looking for. Their concern, and I think it should be our concern, is once that is presented to the legislature, what's going to come out of it. Doesn't mean what goes in is completely going to come out. And I think the formation of this ad hoc committee had to do with Amador Water too, Calaveras County, Amador County, CCWD, all showing unity on where the water is generated from, that we're in unity, and we would like to see these things come out of the legislature as part of the bill. So.
I will also be having a meeting with Congressman McClintock on this issue. I would like to see if there can be some federal support for the positions of the counties and the water districts in our area. So that's just another, we need to show a unified front. Very definitely.
All right. Also, earlier at the beginning of this meeting, there was a gentleman here that was bringing up points of order, and he was reading parts of the rules of procedure that have been adopted by this board. And it seems, as usual, that a lot of times people read what they want to read, a section or parts of what they want to read. But I will read the part that I would like to read into the record as part of the rules of procedure for the Board of Supervisors of Calaveras County. This is Rule 1. It says, excuse me, it says, these rules are intended to expedite the transaction of business of the board in an orderly fashion and are deemed to be procedural only. The failure to strictly observe application of these rules shall not affect jurisdiction of the board or invalidate any action taken at a meeting that is otherwise held in conformity with the law. So, with that being said, I will move on to CAA Lutz. Do you have anything you wish to bring up?
Nothing at this time, thanks.
County Council? Board Clerk? Nothing. So, with that being said, we stand adjourned.